Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this online message here at Deep Rivers Church this weekend. When it comes to announcements, this coming Tuesday is our last trip to a migrant camp. If you haven't had a chance to go with us, 4:30, we leave the church parking lot. We should be back at 8:30. We cross the river, visit a migrant camp, host a cookout, and we have a great time. All right, and we pass out New Testaments, Spanish New Testaments. And if you're curious about membership, next time you're here in the building, fill out the little slip on the half sheet and fill it in, and we'll have a short conversation with you. We hope to have our first members in place at the end of September. So, all right. All that being said, we're not working our way through the book of Proverbs. We're spending the entire summer looking at the book of Proverbs. And this weekend, we're looking at Proverbs and work. All right. So what does Proverbs have to say about work? Let me just say this. Sometimes I say things to the online message folks that I don't always say here on a Saturday night or Sunday morning. And this might be one of those things. Does anybody know the first line of the Godfather movies? Godfather 1, very first line is, "I believe in America." It's an immigrant who's asking the Godfather for a favor. And he says, "I believe in America because America has helped him be a success." It's just a great reminder that America truly is the land of opportunity. We take it for granted. You've heard it, but we just don't recognize how true it is. I've been in Haiti 3 times. And there's a lot of reasons why Haiti is the way that it is. And one of those main reasons is there's just not a lot of opportunity for people to do things. We take our opportunities for granted. Because we are blessed with so many opportunities, we are blessed with so many opportunities to work. Opportunity fuels the possibilities and maybe even the desires that we have to work. Now, there's a great thing about being in America is that most people work hard. Bad thing about America is that some people maybe work too hard. And conversely, some people don't work hard enough. Has anybody memorized 2 Thessalonians 3:10? Anybody know it off the top of their head? We probably all know John 3:16. Obviously, John 3:16 is one of the most important or known Bible verses. But you can make the argument 2 Thessalonians 3:10 has also been a huge influence, but nobody has memorized it. It's a huge influence. It's kind of one of the verses, if not the seminal verse, in forming a Judeo-Christian work ethic. Our Western culture, in many ways, you're going to think this is an exaggeration, but I'm not sure it is. In a lot of ways, our Western culture has been formed in part by this one verse. Basically, I'll put it real simple. 2 Thessalonians 3:10 says, "No food, no work." I messed that up. It says, "No work, no food." All right? If you don't work, you don't eat. It says, "The one who is unwilling to work shall not eat." Okay? And again, you might think that's silly and you might think it's hyperbole and maybe it's a slight exaggeration. But the truth is that verse, that mindset, that Judeo-Christian ethic has seeped into us so much that we might not even recognize it. We are a culture that works hard and sometimes maybe too hard. So here's the problem that I have this weekend. Proverbs talks about the value of work. There's going to be some people here this weekend, Saturday night, Sunday morning, and they might work too hard. So here I have a challenge. How do I prepare a message on the value of work when some people might be working too hard? It's kind of preaching to the choir. This message might be better at a baccalaureate service full of high school graduates or something. But we're going to dig in, and we're going to trust that God will bring something to light that we need to see about work as we look at work in Proverbs. All right, Proverbs 12:24. "The hand of the diligent will rule, while the lazy will be put to forced labor." The hand of the diligent will rule, while the lazy will be put to forced labor. Diligent. Now, when I think of the word diligent, I think of the word quality and not just quantity. Good work is not just showing up, all right? Good work is quality work while you're there. I heard once about a boss or somebody who did interviews, and he purposely left a piece of scrap paper on the floor that would be noticeable for the interviewee to see. And he kind of ran a test. Would the person interviewing for the job pick up this piece of paper that was kind of left on the floor? Would they do something that wasn't asked of them? Did they care enough about this place that they would actually pick up a piece of paper even though there was no expectation for them to do it? We need to reflect Christ well in everything we do. What we say, obviously. What we do, obviously our behavior. But also how we work. Not just showing up, but the quality of our work. You know what would be great is if sometime you found two employers and one employer was bragging to the other employer and said, I lucked out. I hit the jackpot with this person. I hired a Christian, and they show up on time, or they show up, period, and they're diligent in their work. They do what's expected of them, and even more so. Wouldn't that be something if people started bragging about the fact that they hired Christians because our work ethic and because we are diligent? So, all right, that's the first proverb on work. The next one is Proverbs 6 through 11. You might have heard this one before. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer, no ruler. Yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers food at harvest. How long will you lie there, you sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. And poverty will come on you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man. One of the things that pops out at you when you look at this is this word little. Little can easily slide to a lot. A little sleep, a little slumber, and next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You keep hitting the snooze. So a little can easily slide into a lot. So we need to be careful. We need to be aware that we don't let a little become a bigger thing. And when I also looked at this, the ant has no commander, no overseer, no ruler. I think the desire for us to work should be something that is intrinsic. It comes from within us. We don't work because there's a commander, a boss, an overseer, a ruler telling us what to do. We know that work was a part of paradise. Before the fall, Adam and Eve had jobs. There was work to do. Now, work got more complicated after the fall. It was harder after the fall, but we were created to work. And Ecclesiastes also mentions the value of work. So I think our work, whatever it is, we should have an intrinsic, an inward desire to do it, not just doing it for the paycheck, not just doing it because somebody expects us to do it. That's the ideal, I think, is that we work because we want to. It's part of us. 10, the next one, Proverbs 10, 4 through 5. He who gathers crops in summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps through harvest is a disgraceful son. When I saw this one, I got to thinking, there is a time to work and there is a time to rest. Ecclesiastes talk about time for everything. There is a time for, there's a time for us to work. If you're a farmer, obviously the harvest time is the key time. There's a time to work, but there's also a time to rest. And I've also found this true in my own life. I enjoy rest more if it's contrasted with me working and being busy, okay? So sometimes we enjoy the rest more when we are contrasting or comparing it to work, all right? So if we are people that value work, and we work and we're diligent in it, good chance we're going to enjoy our rest even more. 12:11. Those who work their land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies have no sense. Isn't that interesting? Those who chase fantasies have no sense. There is I think, a real danger in our culture, kind of this lottery mindset. I think one of the downsides of the lottery is not only, well, maybe the biggest downside is it undermines a work ethic. It says, maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe I'll get lucky. And it undergirds this thought that I don't have to work to get things. And our culture, our society today it really does fuel some unrealistic expectations in life. We look at social media, we look at even sports stars and the money that they make, and people that are involved in tech and all the money that gets wrapped up in there. It kind of sets some unrealistic expectations. I just think it's that lottery mindset, which in some ways undergirds or undermines culture in a lot of ways. And in some ways, we might not say it out loud, but we get this mindset of chasing fantasies. So that's a great proverb. Those who work their land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies have no sense. The next one, 26, 13 through 16. A sluggard says, there's a lion in the road, a fierce lion roaming the streets. As the door turns on its hinges, so a sluggard turns on his bed. That's a great line. A sluggard buries his hand in the dish. He is too lazy to bring it back to his mouth. A sluggard is wiser in his own eyes than 7 people who answer discreetly. So, this thing about the lion doesn't really seem to jive right away. You can see the door turns on its hinges, so a sluggard turns in his bed. All right, let's talk about lazy. Why would a sluggard say there's a lion in the road, a fierce lion roaming the streets? And I kind of had to look it up and do a little exploring. And the point was this, the lazy create excuses to avoid work. You might know some people who get very, very creative when it comes to avoiding work. The lion in the street was an impossibility. In fact, they're creative. They call it a fierce lion. It's not just any old lion. It's a fierce lion. There are people that are dedicated to the effort of avoiding work. You might know somebody like that. And another downside of the sluggard is that they are wiser in their own eyes. And I hate to use it, but I think there might even be a level of delusion behind their laziness. They think they've got it all figured out or whatever. So this leads us to the question. All right, is laziness a behavioral issue or is it a spiritual issue? Now the world would just look at a lazy person and they come up with all kinds of societal reasons or behavioral reasons or interpersonal reasons. There is a chance, and we don't have time to expound on it, but maybe laziness is more of a spiritual issue than anything else. I think you can make the argument at the core, most of our problems that we face, in fact, are spiritual issues, have a spiritual cause to them, a core. But I think you make the pretty good argument that laziness is a spiritual issue as much as anything else. What fuels laziness? Maybe some people feel defeated. Maybe some people are proud. They don't want to do something. Maybe there's a lack of opportunity. It's a real possibility. Maybe there's this feeling, this idea of victimhood or entitlement, or maybe their life is just easy and they're spoiled. So what fuels laziness? And how much of it is a spiritual thing at the core? So again, I'm just kind of raising the question, not giving you a definitive answer, but I think it's worth pondering. All right, so over and over, Proverbs warns us about being a sluggard. Don't be lazy, don't be a sluggard. Now, here's the big question for the weekend. Can you work too much? Again, I kind of mentioned the challenge of this message. This room's going to be full of people who work really hard. And they're going to say amen to half the points that I shared. Is it possible to work too hard? Now, we have to go back and look at the totality of Scripture. I don't want to base anything just on a very limited part, a few verses here in Proverbs. The Old Testament. All right, the Old Testament, they had a Sabbath day. They had feasts and festivals. Those things, Sabbath, feasts, and festivals, were kind of a forced stop of their work. You could not work on a Sabbath day. It was a forced stop to celebrate and to remember. Okay? So I think God in his wisdom did recognize that, yeah, we might want to work too hard for greed or whatever, identity, or who knows why. But so there are these times in Scripture where we're forced to stop. Even the year of Jubilee, we talked a little bit about that. Well, it was a couple years ago. We were at the middle school. We did a study on the feasts and festivals. And the year of Jubilee was sort of a reset. Property was reverted back to the original owners. I think it was God's way of making sure that people kind of curbed the greed, I guess, a little bit. Kind of leveled the playing field every once in a while. Again, in the Old Testament, there's warnings, continual warnings against greed, oppression to the poor, and injustice. Again, this is the downside, one of the biggest downsides to socialism is that people have different skills, abilities, and motivations to work. So how do you balance all these things? There's a challenge in that. Some people are going to work harder than others, and we're going to end up with different, results from that. And even I think you could make the argument the year of Jubilee was sort of a way to kind of help keep those things, not just motivation, but different skills and abilities. All right, New Testament. Again, can't have this conversation about working hard and not working hard enough without talking about the Mary and Martha story. Mary and Martha had Jesus over for dinner. Mary was content just to sit at Jesus' feet and listen to him. Meanwhile, Martha is running around doing all the work. And this story of Mary and Martha, it does easily confuse us. What's more important, to seek Jesus or to work? Again, no work, no food, all right? Obviously, somebody's got to make the meal. So there's this tension, if everybody was married, no one would eat. So we have to figure out how to balance that. This story, this passage can even kind of frustrate some energetic Christians who kind of want to go do entrepreneurial, energetic kind of things. But Martha, it's an interesting part of this is that Martha says to Jesus, Martha doesn't talk to her sister Mary. Martha kind of complains or scolds, if you want to use that word, Jesus. She says, Lord, don't you care? So she looks at Jesus and says, don't you care that I'm doing all the work? She doesn't complain to Mary. She complains to Jesus about this injustice. And again, it leaves the church kind of puzzled. It's like someone has to do the work. So here's the point of the Mary and Martha story, that seeking God is the first priority, but not the only priority. We have to think, what was Martha's motivation? What was her fear? Why was she anxious? Why was she so worried? Did she have an undue burden that was put on her to provide the best? So maybe Martha's priorities weren't in line either. Why was she so stressed out and feeling that she had to do all the work? Again, that's kind of another nuance of the story. Martha is a little bit like the apostle, the disciple Peter, practical, impulsive, and short-tempered. Mary is more like the disciple John, reflective, loving, and calm. Now, 2,000 years later, we can relate to one maybe more than the other. Some are people like Mary and John. We'd be happy just to sit quietly, read, and worship for hours on end. If we said, hey, this building's open here on Saturday, we're going to have worship music playing. Come, enjoy the music, bring your Bible, just kind of soak in God's presence here at the building. There are going to be some people that really resonates with. There's going to be other people who might come, and they're going to be more like Martha and Peter. And they're going to be here for a little while, but then they're going to start to get a little restless. And they're going to be like, I appreciate worshiping and reading and just sitting quietly, but anybody want to go with me? We're going to go pull weeds out in the church flower beds. That we're just kind of wired to do something. There's a place for both, okay? there's a place for us both to be like Mary and to be like Martha. But the truth is, and the challenge is, go back to that question, can you work too much? We let our busy lives distract us from spending time with Jesus. We let the busyness of our lives, including work, good things, get in the way and distract us from spending time with God. Again, it's important to note Jesus admonished Martha for being worried and upset, not for serving. Jesus recognized that somebody has got to do the work. Somebody's got to serve. It's a necessary thing. But that sitting at the feet of Jesus is the better thing and maybe the best thing. So again, it's not an either or. It's a both. Why? Why would I say that sitting at the feet or seeking time with God is better? Because I think you'd say that blessings, good things that we do, productivity, if you even want to use that word, flow from a Christ-centered life. Our work, the good deeds that we do, don't produce a Christ-centered life. They flow from a Christ-centered life. When we give Jesus the attention he deserves, he empowers us to serve others better. So we can say, yeah, I'm doing a lot. I'm serving God. And the unspoken thought is that if I serve God, then I'm going to be Christ-centered. No, when you spend time with God, you're going to be Christ-centered. And then you're going to do a better job of serving others. So I think at this point it's fair to ask, all right, am I more like Mary? Am I more like Martha? In my natural wiring, okay? I'm a more like Martha, and certainly Nicole is more like Mary, and sometimes, I'll be honest, there's a little level of frustration, like we need to do things, and she's more content and more focused on just spending time with the Lord. But the question is not who are you like, Mary or Martha. The question is, do you have your priorities in order? If you're a Martha, do you need to rearrange your priorities a little bit? Do I have my priorities in order? The second question is, am I worried or anxious about things? Or am I focused on spending time in his presence? That's a pretty direct question. Am I worried or anxious about things? Or am I focused on spending time in his presence? Another way to look at it is, have I put devotion to Christ first? Or am I more concerned about being productive and doing things? Again, it's a matter of our priorities. So this message might be a little shorter than normal because we're also celebrating communion this weekend. And so you think, why are we having communion? Why is communion paired with a message about work? Because lots of times you try to have communion when it falls more in line with the topic that you're talking about. We're having communion this weekend. We're having communion on the same moment that we have a message on work because of, I guess, this word, juxtaposition. We're going to point out the contrast, the disparity, the dissimilarity, the distinction between the work that we are encouraged to do and the free gift of salvation that's found at the cross. No matter how hard you work, no matter how many weeds you pull here at the church, your salvation is a free gift. So yes, in this temporal world, we are be people to work. But when it comes to the spiritual realm and to the spiritual world that we walk in, salvation, what we celebrate when we have communion, is a gift. It can't be worked for. It can't be earned, no matter how hard we try. So that's why we're going to celebrate communion, just to kind of drive that point home a little bit deeper, that communion is a celebration of a free gift. And that we walk in two worlds. In the physical realm, we need to be people of work. In the spiritual realm, we need to accept the work that was done for us. So, all right. Well, anyways, thanks for joining us for this message online. We hope to see you again sometime soon. Take care. God bless. Bye.